Hello, today we're going to be looking at the 1980s, starting with the Reagan years. It is kind of easy to look at the Reagan years and the 1980s as being synonymous because Reagan was initially elected in 1980, took office in January of 1981, and left office in January of 1989. So our first learning objective is to describe Reagan's economic policies. So we'll start by looking initially at the 1980 election. Ronald Reagan, who was a former actor and was the governor of California between 1967 and 1975, ran, and he defeated the incumbent Jimmy Carter, taking 50.7% of the popular vote and won by a landslide in the Electoral College. Now, if we look at this election, there were reasons why Carter lost the election and then separate reasons that really helped Reagan to win. So if we look at the reasons why Carter lost, the specific reasons that were liabilities for Carter: his inability to fix the economy, the inability to end the Iranian hostage crisis, and just kind of a general sense the nation was headed downward. A lot of historians like to talk about a general malaise. Just kind of this general feeling that the nation was headed down the wrong direction, and Carter just didn't inspire any confidence to fix it. So those were all reasons why Carter lost the election. Now we look specifically at the reasons why Reagan won. Positives for Reagan. Conservatives were gaining strength. Many Americans saw Reagan as someone who could solve the country's problems. And Reagan gained the support of the religious right. Now, if we look at kind of the differences between conservatives and liberals, these are generalizations, but general beliefs that are generally held by most conservatives, and liberal beliefs that are, once again, generally what most liberals believe. Conservatives tend to believe that the economy improves with less government involvement. They believe in lower taxes and smaller government. They believe that most of the country's problems are moral issues that can be solved with religious faith. They also believe that tax cuts for the wealthy will lead to improvements in the economy, as the wealthy will invest the saved money and the benefits will trickle down throughout the economy. Liberals, on the other hand, believe that we need more government regulation and programs, and they believe that the government should use social programs to solve problems of the disadvantaged, and that taxes on the rich should help to pay for these programs. They also believe that our social problems stem from the unequal distribution of wealth. Now, like I said, once again, these are generalizations. That doesn't mean that every conservative believes every little bit of what conservatives believe, or that every liberal believes every little bit of what liberals in general believe. But these are kind of two ends of the spectrum. And what ends up happening in the 1980s is that the Republicans really begin to appeal to those that hold more conservative viewpoints on a variety of issues, while the Democrats appeal much more to liberals. And so conservatives are starting to gain some strength. And kind of what helps Reagan to win this election is what becomes known as a conservative coalition. Many Americans believed that the nation had moved away from the traditional moral values during the 1960s and 1970s. The high inflation of the 1960s and 70s had hurt the middle class. Many religious Americans were shocked by Supreme Court decisions that limited prayer in public schools, and by the Roe v. Wade decision that once again allowed abortion to take place. Many of these groups pulled together and helped conservative politicians like Ronald Reagan to gain some strength. And like I said, kind of became known as a conservative coalition. Part of this conservative coalition consisted in what becomes known as the moral majority. Televangelists like Pat Robertson and Jerry Falwell used television to reach people with their message. The moral majority was founded by Falwell, who used his television show, The Old Time Gospel Hour, to promote his conservative political agenda. So Reagan ends up winning the support of religious conservatives and support of economic conservatives as well. and he wins the White House. And we mentioned in the last chapter that one of the first things that happens when Reagan is sworn in is, literally one of the first acts of his presidency is making the announcement that the Iranian hostage crisis is over. Once again, a final insult to Carter. Moments after being sworn in as the 40th president, Reagan is informed that the Americans are on a plane and they have left Iranian airspace. Reagan gets to make the announcement, not Carter. Early in his presidency, Reagan also survived an assassination attempt. On March 30th, 1981, just 69 days into his presidency, Reagan was shot by John Hinckley Jr. while leaving a speaking engagement in Washington, D.C. 3 others were shot, including James Brady, who was shot in the head. Reagan suffered a punctured lung, but with prompt medical attention recovered quickly. Now, John Hinckley Jr., kind of a weird, twisted thing. He somehow thought he would win the attention of the popular movie actress Jodie Foster, who had starred in a movie called Taxi Driver, along with Robert De Niro in the 1970s. And he somehow thought that by pulling off this assassination, he would end up winning over Jodie Foster. And back then, it kind of showed us still how lax a lot of the security protocols were, that he was able to get so close. Like I said, Reagan ends up, he's shot, he's shoved into the limousine and sped away to the hospital, where they didn't even really fully realize how badly he was injured at first. I don't think he even realized how badly he was injured at first. And like I said, others much more severely injured, including James Brady. Later gun control bills, or a later gun control bill, would be named the Brady Bill after James Brady. Brady did actually survive, despite being shot in the head. Also in Reagan's early in his presidency, he had to deal with an air traffic controller strike. And this, of course, is a matter of national security, because ultimately, if the air traffic controllers go on strike, we can't have commercial flights, or really any type of flights for the most part, without some type of air traffic control. And this could really cripple the whole economy. So Reagan declared an emergency and threatened to fire the air traffic controllers if they did not return to work. When they failed to return, he fired more than 11,000 striking controllers. So this really shows that Reagan's willing to take a strong stand and to fight the unions. Reagan also becomes associated with what becomes known as Reaganomics. Reagan believed that the economy would grow when marginal tax rates were low enough to spur investment. He employed supply-side economics. Critics labeled this trickle-down economics. Once again, the idea is you cut taxes on the wealthy, with the idea that as the wealthy benefit from these tax cuts, they'll invest that money into the economy, and then everybody will benefit. It'll stimulate the economy. Reagan attempted to cut government spending for social programs. Reagan increased government spending on defense because he believed in peace through strength. The increased defense spending caused deficit spending, which meant we were spending more money than we were taking in. Reagan also believed that some problems were caused by government regulation. So he began taking steps to deregulate several industries. And here's a quote from Ronald Reagan that really shows what he believed about excessive government involvement. Reagan said, quote, "The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, 'I'm from the government and I'm here to help,'" unquote. Reagan's court appointments. Reagan nominated Sandra Day O'Connor to the Supreme Court, who was the first female on the court, and he appointed William Rehnquist, the most conservative justice, to replace the retiring Chief Justice Warren Burger. Then we hit Reagan's re-election in 1984. The Democratic nominee, Walter Mondale, chose Geraldine Ferraro, the first woman to run on a major party ticket, as his running mate. Reagan won a landslide, taking every electoral vote except for Mondale's home state of Minnesota and the District of Columbia.